Hello. I worry a little bit that we've lost the sense of how to be nuanced and balanced in the way we look at a story. And there's a desire to fall on one side or other of the fence. Well, there are fences where you need to decide which side you're on. In the case of the issue in the palace with Ngosi Fulami and Lady Susan Hussey, I don't think it's necessary to fall on one side or other of the fence. An offence was committed, an offence was caused, and both Ngosi Fulami and Susan Hussey deserve our concern. Ngosi Fulami was offended, and rightly so, to be the subject of an interrogation when she was simply at the palace to represent people who are victims of domestic violence. But it's also possible to admit the possibility that this was a contrived setup and that the piece was recorded rather than remembered. This is the analysis put forward by Mr. Farage rather sensationally last night. It doesn't diminish the insensitivity of the interrogation, even if it changes the context. It places the encounter in the wider perspective of the visit to Boston by Kate and William and the Netflix that dropped, the Netflix trailer that dropped of Harry and Meghan, and the various allegations of racism within the palace, which again are hugely regrettable and almost certainly factual. There is that background anyway, but this story and the way it's emerging possibly draws more attention to that issue. Now, on the positive, both Lady Hussey and the palace acted speedily and should be commended for that, particularly Lady Hussey, whose dignity and whose age deserve comment, and we should indeed absolutely be concerned about her health and the stress that this story places on her being at the centre of a news frenzy in such a short space of time after the death of her friend, the late Queen. The palace should have responded fairly quickly in the first instance and reached out to Ngosi. Not for corroboration about her story or for details, but to check whether or not she is being supported again in this time as the media descend on her. And that absence of support, that absence of concern by the palace, and her confirmation that nobody has been in touch is simply shocking. And that shows priorities which are deeply misplaced within the palace system. I would not be surprised if she receives a letter or even a call from the king, because I think he doesn't share that that disdain or that or that lack of concern. I think he's somebody who is deeply concerned about other people, and I would hope this damage is repaired pretty quickly, and I would imagine it will be. I think that's the most damning and disturbing part of the most damning and disturbing detail of this saga. And we cannot prove that Farage's account is factual, and even if it were, the offence is still also a fact. If somebody is offended, that is the issue, not whether offence was intended. And it's an unfortunate chain of events. But it happened. And we should respond with concern not only for the offence caused, but for the various individuals and their well-being. And that means I don't see any problem with posting a video that expresses concern for Ngosi, and then posting another video that expresses concern for Lady Susan Hussey. I don't see any problem with that. Concern for both should be there in this particular instance. This is not something where I think even if offence was caused, it was intentional, but it doesn't diminish the fact that the offence was there. And people need to learn. And this is a very important learning moment. I've said elsewhere that I got incredibly used to being quizzed, first in Greece, then in Turkey, then across in Eastern Europe, particularly in Russia. Where are you from? What are you doing? How much do you earn? Are you married? Pretty well in that order and pretty routinely. And if somebody were to ask me those questions here, in a way I'm sort of used to it. But I would still feel it was an intrusion. I would feel it was offensive. And as I say, I got used to it. But it doesn't make it any less intrusive. And in a way wrong. So I'm incredibly sympathetic to Ngosi. However, all that said, how does one initiate conversations and get people to tell stories? Because that's what we're interested in. And people clam up in social situations. So I suspect Lady Susan Hussey's job was effectively the same sort of job that producers play in reality TV and in game shows, running around, asking constant stories, asking constant questions, trying to elicit the stories from the individuals. And, but in the end, we're trying to justify, or we can be seen as trying to justify something that was wrong. And we shouldn't draw back from saying that line of questioning is wrong. And certainly, when you look at it, when you listen to the story, touching somebody's hair, not right. Not right. And if you can't see somebody's name badge, why not ask somebody what their name is? I do.